Hello again, because I'm now recording for the people who can't be here. But so this talk today is by Michael Kunkel, which is the regional recruiter for the Peace Corps organization. And the talk is entitled "The Peace Corps as a Stepping Stone to Social Entrepreneurship." And I'm really, really, really excited to have you here today, Michael, to talk about the Peace Corps because, so my best friend, Daisy Morales, who introduced me to you, she works for the Peace Corps. She's a recruiter for the Peace Corps now. And before she was a recruiter, she actually was a participant. She went to Ecuador for 2 years in the Peace Corps. And I had the amazing opportunity to go visit her there. And I spent 2 weeks with her. And so I got to meet all the volunteers and, it was one of the most exhilarating, life-changing, enlightening experiences of her life. And so I just think it's really an amazing opportunity to have you talk about it here because it could be a similar experience for some of our students or anyone else that watches this talk. And, she came out of the Peace Corps when, she loved it so much, she ended up starting working for the Peace Corps. And she just came out with a lot of friends, like so many friends, so many good memories and feeling incredibly fulfilled. And so I just think it's an amazing volunteer program. And I just think it's a great opportunity for anyone to participate in. It's a great way to give back. And now I will let you lead the show. So welcome to our class.
Thank you so much, Professor Weaver. Yeah, and like Daisy, I think I had a lot of those similar experiences in my own service as well, which I'll talk about in a minute here. But yeah, I mean, one of the great things about Peace Corps is how versatile it can be, how diverse it can be, and really just like a lot of things that students are looking for to get sort of that hands-on experience and get that intercultural and get that global experience. Peace Corps provides a lot of that as well, which I'll definitely touch on today. But I'm really grateful and really thankful that you've invited me to join your class and to talk to you all for a little bit. So today I'm going to kind of talk kind of a broad overview of what Peace Corps is, highlight a couple of the projects that we have, talk a little bit about my own service to hopefully help give you some more context, and then talk about some next steps in the application process and what that can sort of look like. But as Professor Weaver had introduced me, my name's Michael. I'm the local recruiter for the Peace Corps. I'm based here in New York City, but I also work throughout Southern Connecticut and Westchester County and a lot of geographic areas. So a big part of what I do is to talk to people like yourselves who are interested in Peace Corps and maybe have questions about the application or about what programs are good fits for them. And so a big part of what my job is to share that information. I also am a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I did serve a term similar to Daisy as well. I served in Madagascar as an English teacher primarily. I was there from 2014 to 2017, so not super long ago. But yeah, my primary role was teaching English in a middle school and a high school in the community where I was assigned in kind of northeast rural Madagascar. This picture here is one of my favorites, and I think it really kind of embodies sort of the grand ideas of Peace Corps. This is a picture with me standing next to my best friend and one of my coworkers, Johnny, who's in the yellow shirt there. He was an English student finishing high school when I first arrived in the community where I was assigned, and he ended up joining me as a librarian at an English library, which I'll mention later on as well. And we developed a really close working relationship, but he also became my closest friend. And still to this day, I consider him like a brother. He's standing next to his wife, and that was their newborn child at that time. The Sua was probably maybe 3 or 4 months old at that point. So I think this is a great sort of visual representation of the relationships that volunteers form in their service and the community work that they're doing. Really, if you're not super familiar with Peace Corps, that's great. That's what I'm here for. Really, in general, we are an international organization that is sending American citizens abroad to work at the community level on really grassroots development projects. So we ask all of our volunteers to make at least a 27-month commitment to service. So that includes 3 months of training in your country of service, followed by 2 full years of service in that same country. The training includes all the technical and job skills you'll need for whatever primary assignment you're going to be asked to do. It includes language training, it includes culture training, safety and security training, health training. We really design it to give you a really good foundation so that you're able to have a safe and successful service for the remainder of those 2 years. But really, if you've ever thought about like really integrating into a culture, really learning a new language from the ground level, being a part of a community and working from within a community rather than imposing ideas or bringing projects from the outside, Peace Corps is a really, really optimal way to do a lot of those ideas. I want to briefly touch on the mission of Peace Corps. We were actually founded as an agency in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy at the time. And we established our mission and our goals at that time, and they have not changed since then. And I think that's really remarkable and really goes towards kind of the core of what we're doing as an agency. But really in general, I mean, the idea of Peace Corps is to promote world peace and friendship. As lofty as that might sound, we do it through these 3 goals here. The first one, as you can see, to help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women. This is kind of the technical job seeking aspect that people typically think about when they think about Peace Corps. And also really want to emphasize the idea of interested countries here, because we're only serving in countries that are inviting us to bring Peace Corps volunteers and to work with them. And I think that's a really important part to understand of what we're doing here. The second and third goals are really all about cross-cultural exchange. You know, we're sending Americans to countries to live and to work and to share their American experience and their American background. As you know, there's a huge diversity of American backgrounds and you know, ways that we can show what our culture is. And that's one of the strengths of Peace Corps, is being able to tell those stories through each volunteer. And our third goal is kind of the flip side of that, is that we kind of expect and we ask our volunteers, and I think this happens very naturally just because of what service is like, to really shed light on the cultures and the experiences of the countries that we're working on to help improve the understanding on the part of Americans. So this is, you know, anytime that Daisy and I talk about our host service or our country where we served in, we're fulfilling that third goal of Peace Corps and really kind of continuing the legacy, which is really fun. Now here you can kind of see just a general overview of the countries where Peace Corps operates in. Obviously, currently, now this is a little bit different due to the COVID-19 situation. We've actually kind of evacuated all of our volunteers. So our programs are sort of on pause for the immediate moment, but we have every intention to going back to these countries and to restarting our programs as soon as it's safe to do so. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. But this gives you an idea of where we currently have posts. A couple changes to this map. Our program in China has since closed, but we are opening new programs in Sri Lanka, in Montenegro, and we're reopening our post in Kenya as well. So we'll have some additional updates to this map as time goes on, which is great. Now you're probably sort of thinking like, okay, this is maybe a cool idea. I want to go travel, I want to be abroad, but like, what am I actually going to be doing? So every volunteer is given a primary assignment, and your primary assignment will fall under one of these 6 categories that you see here on the screen. In my example, again, I was an English teacher, so my primary work was under this education sector. But each volunteer will, like I said, have a primary assignment under one of these sectors. You don't necessarily have to have an academic degree or a professional degree in any one of these fields to qualify for a lot of these projects, but certainly with those backgrounds, that would certainly probably help direct your interests, direct your qualifications, make you a more competitive candidate in certain areas based on your own background. I think for a lot of students here, you know, that community economic development program is maybe going to be a natural fit, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about what those programs typically look like. But this just gives you a really big overview of what type of work we're doing in the Peace Corps. In addition to your primary work under one of these 6 categories, every volunteer is also given kind of sort of the autonomy and the support to do secondary projects in their community. And that's really meant to marry your background and your skills and your interests with what your community needs and what their resources are. So you can oftentimes be a little bit more creative, a little bit more flexible, with developing those projects. You can step outside of your primary work assignment if you want to as well. But those are things that you're typically really only going to be developing once you get to the community, start to get a lay of the land, start to see what's available and what people are interested in doing. When you go on our website and you look at the job openings and you see, what programs we're recruiting for, those are the primary assignments that you're looking for. And again, your secondary projects are going to be kind of moving, once you actually get to the community. So just wanted to talk really briefly about kind of what the community economic development sector looks like, because I feel like this could be the most relevant to your all interests and certainly your academic backgrounds. But really what the CED is, what we call it for short, what that's all about is really kind of about improving economic opportunities. And we do that through a lot of different projects. The projects sometimes look a little bit different depending on the country and depending on the focus area. But in general, that's sort of what volunteers in the CED sector are working towards. So you're working with a lot of entrepreneurs, you're working with a lot of, small scale, cooperatives and women's groups and things like that to help create more business development opportunities, more income generating opportunities for them. Really want to give them the skills and the education and the capacity to create their own sustainable projects. So what this could maybe look like is helping, a small co-op develop marketing strategies and developing more, business relation strategies so they can bring their products to a bigger market and create more income generating activities from there. It's a lot of business advising, it's a lot of finance stuff. Like I said, the details sort of look a little bit different community to community, but really, for folks with a business background and an entrepreneurship background, this tends to be kind of a natural sort of look and a natural progression into what their volunteer work could be like. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. So secondary projects, as I mentioned, kind of a way for you to work in multiple sectors. It's really based on the needs of your community. And it's really kind of a way for you to bring your own flavor and your own skills to the community that you're living in. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about a few of the projects, the secondary projects that I worked on in Madagascar, just to, again, kind of give you a sense of what volunteers are actually doing. I've got some pictures as well, so you can sort of see what it looks like to be a volunteer, at least in Madagascar, and hopefully give you some more context. But the first program that I was involved with was called the Andapa Public Library. Andapa was the name of the community where I was living. And this was a great resource that actually the previous Peace Corps volunteer, before I had shown up, had really done a lot of the legwork to get the space donated, get all these English books donated, but essentially it was an English library that I walked into. So I was very lucky to have this resource sort of ready to go on day one for me. So what it ended up being is a great place for students to meet after school, get some more exposure to English language. Certainly these English books were a great resource for them to use as well. We would invite local schools to bring their students in to study English in our library, because this was really kind of the only English resource available in that particular district. So we were very, very lucky to have that. Another secondary project I worked on in conjunction with other Peace Corps volunteers in the region that I lived in was the Sava English Teacher Training Program. So really the idea behind this was to create a training program for local English teachers to improve their capacity and to give them more skills and resources so that they could go back out into their classrooms and really improve their teaching style and impact more students. Really kind of the meta idea here is that me as one Peace Corps volunteer can impact X number of students in my classroom. But if I can give skills and experiences and education to other teachers who are then going out into their classrooms, we can, theoretically impact an exponential number of students on top of that. So we're looking at a larger impact, a more sustainable impact. We included a lot of monitoring and evaluation in this particular project to make sure that teachers felt comfortable with their skills, that they were continuing using their skills in their classroom after the training. But mostly it was a great way for them to network with each other and just meet each other, because that is not a thing that happens very often in Madagascar and in most countries where Peace Corps volunteers are serving. So stepping a little bit outside of the education world, another project that I worked on was kind of this mix of a youth development project and a health project. It was a malaria fighters project, Piati Tasmuka in Malagasy, which is the local language there. And the idea behind this was we gathered and recruited a group of young leaders in the community, trained them and gave them a lot of information about malaria, kind of safety, health risks, kind of the biology of malaria as well, because it was a very pervasive and very costly issue in the region of the country that we lived in. And then we encouraged them and gave them the skills to build their own programs and get out into the countryside, into the villages where they originally come from, and to share that information with other community members, and again, spread that information and that awareness. So the top row of photos that you see is kind of from the training modules where I was working with other Peace Corps volunteers to give these young leaders the education and the information that they needed. And the bottom row of pictures is from the actual community events where they were going out and sharing that information and working with community members to improve their awareness and to improve their kind of education around malaria as well. And the final project I wanted to talk about, again, stepping outside of the education world and kind of sticking with the youth development kind of theme, is this MAP camp. Men as Partners is what MAP stands for. This was another project that I collaborated with other Peace Corps volunteers. And really the idea here is that Peace Corps in general, a lot of development agencies talk a lot about young girls and women's empowerment and creating programs to lift young girls and women in their communities, which is absolutely essential. The idea behind this project in particular was sort of taking that as a starting point and recognizing that women's empowerment is not just a women's issue, it is a men's and women's issue, and men and women need to be working together for the betterment of everybody. So what we decided to do is create kind of an education and a training program for young men in the region where we were living in on how they could incorporate more women into their projects, into their society. Madagascar is a very patriarchal society, like many of the societies where we work in. So this was kind of a new idea for them that, you know, having men and women on equal ground can actually benefit everybody in the community. So we asked them to develop some community projects, to do some community outreach, got a lot of training and skills on that, and created this program, you know, along with that. So it's kind of a snapshot of some of the projects that I worked on personally, but also some of the broader themes and ideas that Peace Corps volunteers all across the world are working on and incorporating in their work every day. So if you're still with me and you're still kind of interested in Peace Corps, let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits that you have, because there are a ton of benefits that you get not only during your service, but also after your service. So really kind of the first things I want to talk about during your service, first of all, Peace Corps pays for your flight to and from your country of service. So your travel is kind of taken care of. Every volunteer gets a living stipend that covers their housing, their food, their transportation, any other basic incidentals that they might need. It's designed to let you live at about the same economic level as the community that you're going to be in. So you're never going to be the super rich American, but you're also not going to be eating dirt for 2 years. It's a very comfortable stipend to live off of. As I mentioned, housing is provided typically by the host organization that you're going to be working with. All volunteers get full medical and dental coverage. We have Peace Corps medical officers, which are doctors and nurses that are Peace Corps staff employees in country, and their sole purpose is to be medical providers for volunteers. So whether you need routine care, your annual physicals, or if there's any emergencies or, you know, illnesses or, you know, accidents that come up along the way, you've got a full team of medical professionals to take care of you while you're in country, which is great. We have a lot of student loan deferment and kind of cancellation sort of programs with Peace Corps as well. Typically, if you have any federal student loans, you can typically defer those during your service and you're not paying any interest, you're not making any monthly payments on it. If you're working towards the public student loan forgiveness program, which if you have not heard about that, I would encourage you to research that a little bit more on your own and see if that's a good fit for you. But your 2 years of Peace Corps service can work towards your overall, I believe it's 10 years of public service in the Public Service Fund Loan Forgiveness Program. And then if you have any private loans, we can help you work with your loan provider to get on different income-based payment plans, to get on deferment plans. It looks a little bit different depending on the provider, but Peace Corps can provide you that paperwork and that guidance that you might need. Every volunteer gets about 48 days of vacation while you're serving for the entire 2 years. You can use that in different chunks and in different ways that you want to, but it's nice to know that you have vacation time off. Like in Professor Weaver's example, when she went to go visit Daisy, I'm assuming Daisy took some vacation days to have some time to travel around and to see different parts of the country. So that's a great resource exactly to take care of and to show your friends when they come and your family when they come, and just to explore the country and the region that you're going to be serving in as well. I'd also say you get a ton of career skills. You're not only going to be getting 2 years of really hands-on experience in this particular field, but you're going to be so much more adaptable, so much more resourceful. You're going to be working in a cross-cultural setting for 2 years. Those are a lot of the soft skills as well that employers are going to be looking for. So you get this great mix of hard and soft skills that you can really leverage in a career after serving in the Peace Corps. Now let's talk a little bit about what happens after your service. This slide actually needs to be updated because you get now closer to about $10,000 in transition funds after your service. We call this a readjustment allowance, and it's really designed to help you kind of get back on your feet once you finish your service and get back to the States. But essentially, it's a check that Peace Corps writes you, and it's your money to do whatever you want with it. So some people choose to travel a little bit further after their service and use that money that way. Some people want to start paying back their student loans. Some people are, working on, getting a first couple months of rent in an apartment somewhere. Whatever the case may be, you've got these funds that'll help you sort of transition back into life after service. We have a ton of graduate school benefits as well. I want to briefly highlight that. If you're thinking about graduate school at any point, I would really encourage you to think about doing Peace Corps service beforehand, just so you can get access to this graduate school benefit. We have a nationwide fellowship program where we partner with over 100 different universities, over 200 degree types, from business to law to science to education to social work, everything in between. And essentially for a graduate school to participate in our fellowship program, they have to provide at least 25% tuition remission and top of relevant field internship experience. So a lot of schools will go above and beyond. Some schools will give you a full ride. They'll pay for your entire tuition. But even still, a minimum 25% off of graduate school tuition is still a pretty fantastic deal. So you can go on our website and look at all the graduate schools that we currently have partnerships with and see if there's something that kind of catches your eye there. But this is a benefit that you would have for the rest of your life after you serve as a volunteer. So even if you want to go to graduate school 5, 10, 15 years from now, you could still access this benefit after you serve as a volunteer, which is great. You'll also be tapping into a huge alumni network of returned Peace Corps volunteers. In terms of your career, I always say, over the years, there have been Peace Corps volunteers that have served in almost every country, worked in every industry, at almost every company. So if there's a particular company or industry or type of work that you want to be doing, likely there's a returned Peace Corps volunteer that has done that or is currently doing that. And it's so easy to connect with them, and we really look out for each other and really have each other's backs. So that networking piece is a huge, huge benefit that you're going to be able to walk into. We also have some great federal employment hiring advantages as well. So you would have, after you complete your service, you're going to have 1 year of what we call non-competitive eligibility. All you basically need to know, it's a special federal hiring status that allows you to compete for federal positions as if you are already a federal employee. If you're interested in working for the federal government, I can tell you as a current federal employee, it's not such a bad gig. A lot of great benefits. This works in all different agencies, but really having that advantage, that hiring status, essentially lets you go to the front of the line, making sure that you're meeting all the basic criteria for that particular role. And it makes it much easier for HR to hire you. Therefore, you are now a much more competitive and attractive candidate for them. So it's definitely something to think about If you've thought about working for the government, even starting your career, getting a little bit of experience with the government, this is a great benefit to leverage as well. So let's talk a little bit about the application process as well, and then I'll have some time to take some questions from you all. But really, this is kind of a broad overview and a snapshot of what the application process looks like. Really, right now, we're even at step one, talking about browsing kind of what Peace Corps is about, learning about what positions are available, what countries are available. You're already on step one, so congratulations. Really, from step 2 to step 8 that you see here, that timeline typically takes about 6 to 9 months. So that's something to keep in mind, and I'll talk a little bit about application timing in a moment here. But really, in general, all of our applications are taken online, so you apply directly online. We'll ask you for a brief self-reported health history. So you do not need to go to a doctor, do not need to get any paperwork at this point, step 3. After that, you could be asked to come to step 4, an interview with one of our placement officers. Takes place over a video conference, about an hour, hour and a half, pretty typical interview situation. After that, you could receive an invitation, which is like your official, yes, we want you to be a Peace Corps volunteer. If you accept that invitation, that'll bring you to step 6, and you'll start your medical and your legal clearance process. That takes a bulk of that 6 to 9 month time frame that I mentioned earlier. This is where you're going to your doctor for a physical, you're getting any lab work, you're getting immunizations. We're doing a full background check on you as well. So, this is going to take a little bit of time. Moving on to step 7, approximately 2 months before you're scheduled to depart, you'll start doing some online onboarding courses. This could be mostly dependent on what type of work you're going to be doing. Maybe there's a few assignments, some ideas that they want you to read through before you get to country. This is also where you're going to start working on your student loan paperwork. We can help you set up a power of attorney if you want to, kind of all those little nitty-gritty technical points that people are probably not thinking about today, but are going to need to think about before they depart. And then finally, bringing you to step 8 is your departure. You will meet up with the rest of the cohort of other volunteers that you're going to be serving with. So we establish cohorts of volunteers to serve together. And then you'll meet up here in the US, and then you'll all come and fly to your country of service and start your training and continue on your service that way. That's like a really broad overview of what the application process looks like. Let's talk a little bit about timing, because I know that's really important for a lot of people as well. So essentially what this page is telling you is that we have 4 different application cycles throughout the year. So we have 4 different deadlines that you can see there on the left of that column. But I really prefer and I really encourage people to read this sort of from the right, moving to the left. And that's to say, depending on when you are most interested and available in actually departing for service, what month of the year, that's going to dictate what application cycle and what deadline you need to be meeting before that, right? So for example, right now we're kind of looking, our next application deadline is that July 1st application deadline you see there. If you apply by July 1st of this year, those programs are not even scheduled to depart until early 2021, January, February, March of 2021. So if that feels like a realistic time for you to get on the plane, then I would encourage you to apply before July 1st, and so on and so forth throughout the other months of the year. Typically for undergrads and anybody who's looking to depart pretty soon after they graduate, they're going to want to be looking at our October 1st or even our January 1st application deadlines. Just a quick note, actually next week, next Friday, May 1st, we're going to be posting our new October 1st programs on our website. So if you want to get a sneak peek and kind of start seeing what programs we're going to be recruiting for that October 1st application deadline, check on our website starting May 1st, about a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, and you'll see those programs open. But really, application tips are really applying early is great for many reasons, and really tailoring your resume and your motivation statement, which is like a 500-word essay, tailoring that to the type of work that you want to be doing. That's something that we always encourage. And as a recruiter, a part of my job is to help you build that application if that's what you want to move forward with. So I can review your resume, I can help give you some templates and give you some ideas of what to expect throughout the application process. So definitely feel free to use me as a resource, not only for your questions, but also as you're going through the application process as well. So of course, there's some next steps. Really connecting with me and staying connected with me is a great option as well. In a moment, if it's okay with Professor Weaver, I'll drop a link to our website in the chat where you can just leave your contact information if you want to follow up with me. That would be a great thing to use as well.
That'd be great.
Awesome, thank you. But essentially, that's kind of the overview of Peace Corps and kind of the options that we have right now and what it's like to be a Peace Corps volunteer. This is all my contact information, so feel free to connect with me, feel free to email, feel free to call. I know the current COVID-19 situation has left a lot of uncertainty in a lot of different areas, but I'm here to reassure you that we are still working hard. We are still have every intention to come back and to restart programs as soon as we can. So that means that we're going to need people like you who are interested in doing Peace Corps to continue working and to continue researching this opportunity. So with that, I'll take some time to go through some questions if you have, and happy to help for as long as I can.
Do you have any questions? I can start it off.
Yeah.
So I know that all the volunteers were evacuated from the different countries that they're in. You can hear my kids in the back. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh, good luck to you.
Yeah, it's been hard, but fun.
Good.
So how do you think that the pandemic will shape, I guess, the Peace Corps going forward? Like, what does the next 3 months even look like?
Right. No, that's a good question. And I know it's a lot on people's minds right now. So currently where we're at, as I mentioned in the beginning, we've sort of suspended our programs. We've evacuated all the volunteers. So everybody's back home now and safe and healthy. Right now, we don't anticipate being able to go back to countries really anytime before October 1st. So that's kind of like the new sort of deadline that we're working with right now.
Okay.
And of course, we're doing country by country analysis and working with local governments and working with the US embassies in each country to make sure that we are coming back in a safe and a smart and a respectable way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the current state. But like I was saying too, even with our current application cycle, those programs aren't scheduled to depart until early 2021, which I hope we are living in a very, very different world by that time and we're able to go back into countries. But that just keeps it in perspective, I think.
Okay, wonderful. And what is an example of a Peace Corps volunteer's assignment in a community economic development program?
That is a really good question. And I am going to share my screen real quick and take you to the Peace Corps website and show you kind of what we're currently looking at, right? So you can see this is our homepage, peacecorps.gov, very easy to find. Here at the top here, you can go into this volunteer tab and you can look at volunteer openings. So this will take you to all the current programs that are currently accepting applications. You can see we've got 42 programs here that are still open and available accepting applications. On the right-hand side, you can filter all of your results by all of these different criteria. So you can look at the different sectors, you can look at language requirements, you can look at specific countries. So right now, let's look at just the Community Economic Development Sector program. I think we have about 9 programs that are available right now. So you can kind of get to see, just on the title alone, sort of what some of these programs are going to be looking at. And if you click on each one, I'll just use this one in Ghana as an example. If you click on each title, it'll open up a whole project description. So it'll give you all the information about that particular country, what the work is actually going to look like, all the application dates on the right-hand side there. And probably the most important part that you'll all want to be looking at is if you keep scrolling down, you'll see the required skills and the desired skills. So this is just like any other job posting. This is exactly what we're looking for in a candidate. Having those required skills is going to be, kind of essential. And those desired skills are things that are going to be extra and on top of everything else, going to make you a much more competitive candidate. So I'm going to back up real quick. And again, just to your original question, just sort of kind of being able to take a look at what some of these roles are going to be looking at. So you can see it's a lot of business development. It's a lot of organizational development. So these are going to be working with local partners, local organizations. Sometimes it might be, maybe a government program, maybe it's a local business program. Those sorts of organizations are really looking for volunteers to help their business, help create business plans, help them implement their business plans that they might already have, create maybe more efficiencies and smarter ways to bring their products and services to the local markets. So you can see there's kind of a different focus area in some different countries there. But I would definitely encourage folks to kind of scroll through this on their own and look through some of the different programs.
Wow, that's amazing. What is the maximum age of a Peace Corps volunteer?
So we actually have no upper age limit. So we
Good.
have, yeah, exactly. So minimum age is that you're 18, and also the minimum requirement is that you're a US citizen. So those are really the only two hard and fast gotta have requirements. Everything on top of that, including a degree, to some extent is sort of gonna be optional. So that being said, we have no upper age limit. The average age of a Peace Corps volunteer these days is right around 26, 27. So you can still, it's still kind of trending a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But even from my own personal experience and other volunteers that I know, I served with volunteers in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s. I served with a guy that started when he was 72. So like, there's really no wrong time, I think, to come to Peace Corps.
Yeah. It's something I honestly want to do like once my kids go to college.
I hear
that. I can't leave them for like 2 years. So a very long time from now.
Yeah, it's hard to leave little kids behind in a situation like this.
But actually, I had such an amazing experience when I went to Ecuador to see Daisy that this summer we were planning on moving to Ecuador for the whole summer.
Wow.
And learning, as a family and learning Spanish because I had just such an amazing experience there. But then this happened. So we're not going to be doing that.
That's okay. That's okay. Next summer, hopefully.
Yeah, next summer. We definitely want to do that soon because it'll be just amazing. I guess my last question for you is like, what do some Peace Corps volunteers do after? And I don't have any questions from the chat.
Sure.
Like what professions do many Peace Corps volunteers go into after their service? And I do know, just like from a hiring perspective, people love to hire Peace Corps volunteers because it's seen as like you have a good heart, you're a hard worker because it's a tough program. And so what are some of the professions?
Yeah, I would say, kind of like I alluded to earlier, that Peace Corps volunteers come from a variety of backgrounds, and after service, they go into a variety of different industries and types of jobs. I think a common theme that people include in their careers after service is sort of this idea of service and of working at a community level and working at a group level for the betterment of other people and other organizations and other countries. So that is obviously going to look a little bit different in lots of different areas. I know quite a few people personally who have gone on to MBA programs and working now in like corporate sustainability and kind of like corporate impact sort of roles. I know a lot of people that have stayed in countries where they served and working kind of at that small business level and developing co-ops and developing projects sort of that is stemming off of what they did as volunteers. So that's a huge project or a huge thing that people do. A lot of people go into government work, to be quite honest, and really leveraging that non-competitive eligibility, that hiring status I mentioned earlier, whether that's State Department, whether it's Foreign Affairs in general, Small Business Association, the EPA, Department of Labor, all that kind of stuff. That hiring advantage works across all different agencies and across all different departments. So don't feel like you have to be limited to just a certain scope. But I find that that's a really great way for people to get their foot in the door with a great agency, get a lot of skills, get a lot of experience, and then move on to something else, whether they want to get into corporate life, whether they want to start their own business. Having, again, that hands-on government experience can be a really great asset that people can use moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this presentation. Benjamin, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
I always say if you're gonna like scream in the background, at least come and say hi.
Exactly.
But
Well, yeah, I want to really thank you, Professor Weaver, for inviting me, and for all of your students for listening to me go on for a little bit. Hopefully it was, some interesting information and something to think about in addition to other options that people might be exploring as they think about graduation. But again, just want to reemphasize, if you have questions or want to reconnect with me, more one-on-one, all my contact information there, and I'd be happy to help.
thank you so much.
Thank you all. I'll leave you for now. I know you've got some business to take care of.
Yeah, so for after this, any student can ask me any questions just about the week or the class going forward, because we are in week 14. And so we're wrapping up. Thank you so much, Michael.
You're welcome, everybody. See you later. Have a great day.
See you later. Bye. All right, so actually,